This officer now facing serious federal charges. Prosecutors say he sexually abused people he had in his custody. This is an expansion of the investigation First Alert 4 broke to you first in June.
Yeah, new here at 5, First Alert 4 Chief Investigator Lauren Traeger explains more victims could be out there.
What we're talking about here is civil rights violations, charges that are often used for police officers who say wrongfully beat a suspect. But this case is different, and we do want to warn you, some of the details might be disturbing.
I think maybe 90%, 95% of our police department was white, never saw a black officer.
That was Marcellus Blackwell just last year at Police Academy. He said it was growing up near Chicago that inspired him to serve.
So it's an opportunity to be a part of the change.
But now prosecutors say he abused the power of his badge in one of the worst ways imaginable.
They stem from sexual assaults as well as kidnapping, and he is also facing charges for falsification of records.
Assistant United States Attorney Christine Krug says the charges against Blackwell stem from 8 different victims. Charging documents say while employed as a police officer with the North County Police Cooperative between November of 2022 and June this year, Blackwell fondled the genitals of 8 men who he had detained or handcuffed. The indictment further alleging he'd kidnapped the victims and that he'd purposefully turned off his body camera in some of the incidents. He was charged in St. Louis County in June with just 1 victim. After seeing the reports in the media, Krug says more victims came forward.
The 8 victims who are currently part of the charges that are pending right now were very courageous, to come forward. This is not an easy thing to do.
Do you have reason to believe there may be other victims?
Based on the investigation and the evidence that has been collected thus far, we do have reason to believe that.
That reason, videos on Blackwell's phones of possible so far unnamed victims.
We would encourage any other victims to come forward and know that we, as a system, the law enforcement as well as our office, have resources available to support them and to help get them the justice that they deserve.
There are also allegations Blackwell attempted to intimidate at least one of his victims. The North County Co-op declined to comment today, but had called the initial allegations, quote, massively disheartening. I'm Lauren Traeger. First Alert 4 investigates.